Keith Norris, welcome to the Keto Camp podcast, brother.
Ben, it's fantastic to be here. I'm glad we connected.
I'm glad we connected too, and I can't wait to talk about PaleoFX 2020 and just all the cool things that you and Michelle and your whole team are doing, and we'll get to all that. We will. But before we do, I'd love for you to share your story. Why are you doing what you're doing? Share your mission with us and how you got to this point.
Right. Well, a little bit of the background for PaleoFX. 10 years ago, Michelle and I were corporate warriors. We were living the quote unquote American dream. We had the big house, big cars, kids in the best schools, and we measured success based on monetary measures, right? We were totally caught in that web. And during that time, the financial crisis hit of 2008, and we lost just about everything we had. We still had our corporate jobs, but we were heavily leveraged in real estate at that time, because at that time, everybody knew that real estate was going nowhere but up. So we had a lot of cash on hand, and that cash was invested in real estate. And, within about 6 months after the crash, we were bordering on bankruptcy. And we weren't just bordering on bankruptcy financially, we were bordering on bankruptcy emotionally and at the soul level, because we were doing and being what in our souls we knew that we weren't ready to do, and it just wasn't us anymore, and we were only putting on this facade to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And it was at that time it was a soul search for both of us, and we decided that and we had decided before the crash actually that we were getting out of corporate America. We were going to cash out. The real estate investments were our quote unquote, and pardon the French, fuck you money. And that was our exit plan. And that exit plan evaporated in about 6 months. In May, the first weekend in May of 2009, Michelle and I were at a Kentucky Derby party. And this was the first time we had been out in a while. We had like zero party in us at this time, but we were living in North Carolina at the time. And if you're in North Carolina, if you're in the South, you're at one of two places. If you're in the well-heeled crowd in the South, you're either at Churchill Downs for the race, or you're at a Kentucky Derby party. We were at a Kentucky Derby party. Long story short, we came back from that party that evening, and we were notified that our daughter, who was a senior in college at that time, had died in an auto accident. And as you might expect, it was devastating, completely devastating. She was a music ministry major, and she was a week away from her college graduation, 3 days before her 23rd birthday. And so now we had that to deal with on top of everything else. At that point, we had decision to make. We could either turn back and continue doing what we were doing, because at least we had the safety net of my job anyway. Michelle had been let go from her job as a result of the financial crisis, but I still had my job. And that was our safety net, but we chose to forge forward, because at that point, after losing a daughter, financial failure it's kind of like whatever. It's not even a blip on the map. So long story short, we moved back to South Texas. We're originally from South Texas. We moved to Austin because that's a hub of entrepreneurship, and we just love the vibe of the city and always have. And we became entrepreneurs. I opened gyms. Michelle was a certified chef, still is a certified chef. She created a catering company, and we began to dig ourselves back out of the financial hole that we were in. During that time, we came up with the idea for PaleoFX, because we had been to many, largely because of me being in the strength and training community, had gone to a number of conferences that were academic conferences and enjoyed conferences. But one thing that was always missing from those conferences, we felt, was an action plan for the common man. And we wanted to create a conference or an event that was a rubber meets the road, right? Distill all of this theory, all of this information into actionable plans that people can take home and act on. In 2011, we were at a conference in California. It was at UCLA. And on the way back from that conference, literally on a Southwest airline flight, on a Southwest airline napkin, we came up with the concept of PaleoFX. on the back of a napkin. I wish we still had that napkin. We don't. That original idea was more of a mastermind type of situation, maybe 100, 150 people, maybe 10 or so presenters. And by 2012, by the time of the first PaleoFX, that had ballooned to 800 attendees and over 100 speakers, or I think it was over 60 speakers at that time. And just to give you a contrast between 2012 and 2019, the 2012 show, 800 attendees, maybe 12 vendors on our exhibition floor, if you could have called it that at that time. This year at the PaleoFX was 8,000 attendees and over 150 exhibitors.
Wow.
So this movement has taken off, and it is, for Michelle and I, it is a tribute to our daughter, Brittany. It is our way to give back to society. It is our way to put a dent in the universe, because she never had the chance to put the dent in the universe in the way that she had wanted to do, and with the gifts that she had. So as few gifts as Michelle and I have, the one gift that we do have is we're great networkers. We just have a massive network of people that we lean on personally, because we're not experts really in anything, but we just know people who are, and we leverage that to create PaleoFX.
That's amazing, Keith. First and foremost, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your heart. What a dedication to Brittany. What incredible work you and Michelle and everybody at PaleoFX is doing. And it's so cool that you were on an airplane, you're on Southwest, and this was a thought, which all thoughts are things, right? This is a thought,
right,
on a napkin. Now, 8 years later or so, you have 8,000 people coming
right,
to the PaleoFX. It's amazing. And you have started such a movement worldwide, not just in the
right.
US. And the caliber of speakers you have there, even the vendors, you have an ingredients ban list. Like, you guys do it the right way, and it's so respectable. That's why I reached out to you, and I'm like, hey, how can I contribute to this event?
Right.
How can I be involved with what you guys are doing? So let's just rewind real quick. So 2012 was the first one. We're heading into 2020. So that's it. This is going to be your 8th one?
This will be the 9th show. It'll be the 8th year. Yeah.
What has been the biggest lessons you've learned? I know there's a lot of lessons there, but what has been the biggest lessons from putting on an event from, you had 300 people the first time, you said?
It was 800. Yeah.
800, yeah, which is still pretty damn good for the first one.
Yeah, it was shell-shocking to us first year, really, that many people. But
that's really good for your first one. And now you have about 8,000 coming. Like, what are some lessons that you learned about putting on this event each year?
I think the biggest lesson for Michelle and I, and we really didn't realize the extent of how valuable tribe is to this community. And tribe is so very valuable to everybody, but especially in this community. And we kind of had a gut sense of that. We had a gut sense that like-minded people liked to come together, physically come together. And that was lacking in this kind of paleo health and wellness sphere. There really wasn't. In the academic conferences, we're kind of covering that, but they weren't, because there seemed to be that just a little disconnect. So the academic conferences were very, very mental, and there just seemed to be a disconnect of people coming together just to network and play, have a good time, to learn, yes, absolutely, but just to converse and hang out with one another and just be with one another. And we had an intuitive sense of that, but we didn't realize how much that was lacking. Because if you ask attendees who come to PaleoFX, and you ask them, if you could distill down to one thing that brings you back year after year to PaleoFX, what is it? And they might use words, but it all comes back to tribe and community. This is a one time of year they can all come together and rub elbows together and hang out and spend time in a beautiful city together, and they thrive on that. And I think that's missing in our world, at least in our first world, that is tremendously lacking. And you can see that at PaleoFX. I mean, the vibe on the PaleoFX floor is just elevated. People are hugging, people are crying, and it's just a great community. And that, I think, over and above every other success that PaleoFX has been for Michelle and I, and for our team as well, the PaleoFX team, that is what we feed off of year to year to year.
I love it. Yeah, your vibe attracts your tribe. You're putting out that
Yes.
vibration. You're putting out that information, and all of a sudden, boom! You have people who flock to you,
Right.
myself included. Where did the name PaleoFX come from?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, Michelle and I had been paleo for many, many years before PaleoFX. I was maybe an early adopter, an OG, I'd say, from back in the dial-up days. And so we believed in the lifestyle. And that was something that we totally believed in. The FX part of it was, it's one of those branding sessions where you're just going around and you're throwing out ideas. We knew we wanted paleo in the brand some kind of way. And I just threw out the term. I don't know how it came to me, because I'm a liberal arts major, and math by any stretch of the imagination is not my thing, but something, we're just randomly throwing out ideas, and the FX thing came to me because a mathematical term for function. And I was just thinking through, we want this to be a functional event. And I was thinking, paleo function, paleo, and just kind of kicking around those ideas. And somehow PaleoFX just came out. And of course we laughed at it like you always do for, different ideas. And it just kind of stuck, and it kind of, it was different enough to draw attention. It was different enough for people to ask questions, just like you did. What's the FX thing? And we thought, well, I don't know, let's run with it and see what happens. And that's literally how it came about. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely it's an attention grabber. It's a conversation starter, like I just asked.
right.
So fantastic choice right there. I think you think you got the right choice with that name. I think it's a great solid name.
Well, a complete bastardization of the FX thing,
Right.
but it's
working.
It's working, yeah.
Yeah, and the paleo, although paleo is in the title, your events are much more than just a paleo diet. It's everything actually functional, but
Right.
ancestral living, right?
Right.
And going back to our ancestral roots. And on the Keto Camp podcast, we talk all about these ancient healing strategies.
Mhm.
Keto is a powerful tool in
Right.
that toolbox. And I use a variation of keto and paleo. I do what Dr. Pompa teaches, the diet variation, and I kind of
Right.
cycle my clients out of ketosis for a short term, put them in paleo, low carb, then back into keto. But it's all about getting back to our ancestral roots, mimicking our ancestors. Could you talk a little
Right.
bit more about that?
Yeah, so the show did start as a diet and fitness show, right? Those are the two big components to a healthy lifestyle. But Michelle and I always knew that there are other components that go into that. At that time, we didn't know how, and we didn't have the bandwidth or the team size to be able to incorporate all these other elements into the show. Those other elements, if you look at any high functioning human being, any high functioning tribe of human beings, there's similarities between all of those. So clean diet and movement, yes, but over and above that, there's mental health, emotional health. There is spiritual well-being. There is relational well-being. There is tribal well-being. All of these other things, and in our society, there is a financial well-being as well. That's just another energy currency that we use in this society, in the first world. And so by looking at all of those, we say, what does it take to make an optimal human being? What are all of those areas that we can look at that make a human being optimal? Because we know that if you're lacking in any one of those areas, whether it's diet, exercise, movement, emotional health, spiritual health, mental health, any of that, you are lacking as a human being, and you are not functioning to your full capacity. And we want everybody to function at their full capacity, because Michelle and I, when we look at PaleoFX, Michelle and I we always laugh and we say, we're not the people who are going to split atoms. That is not us. But we know how to make people healthy, and we know people who know how to make people healthy. And to the extent that we can raise the level of health and allow each individual to express their own genius without having to be hamstrung by poor health, they can then go split the atom. They can, figure out string theory or whatever, the mysteries of the universe. those mysteries might not be solved by that person if that person is in poor health. So that's our mission.
I love it. It's so true. You know, we can't do great things if we don't have our health. And
Right.
I was just in, I just spoke in New Orleans to a group of 170 entrepreneurs. Most of them are real estate guys. And I'm like, look, money is great. Earning money, making an impact, growing your business, amazing. We should, abundance is our birthright. But what's the
Right.
use of doing that if your health is going there and your wealth is going up there, or your finances? That's not the way it should be. You take care of your
Right.
health. Your health is your true wealth. So I love that you empower people to take that back to their home.
Right.
Whatever they work on, it'll just upgrade their life.
Ben, I see that so much in the entrepreneur community, right? You see people come in with passion and they flash hot and fast and they burn out. It's because and it always centers around one of those pillars that we just talked about. They fail in their diet, they fail in movement, they fail with emotional health or mental stability, or one of those other pillars crumbles and down they go. So yes, finances are important, and some people place, a tremendous, especially entrepreneurs, place a tremendous amount of importance on that. But you can't maintain that for long. You have to maintain all of the pillars at a sufficient level to be able to continue going.
Right on. Yeah, I love that holistic view.
Right.
That's the body as a whole. It's not just one thing.
Exactly.
You've had such amazing speakers at PaleoFX, some of the best in the world. I mean, Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey. I mean, I could go on and on with the names. JJ Virgin, Dr. Pompa, who I believe is the
Right.
best of the best. I'm
Right.
biased, but
Right.
that's my personal
He
opinion.
is. He is fabulous for sure. Yeah.
He's amazing. They put out a lot of great information, and you could find that on your PaleoFX YouTube channel. You could find it on the internet. Now, my question to you is, what I'm leading towards is, if you could extract, let's say, 5 things out of all that information that's been shared on stage that you feel would make a big difference for the keto campers that are listening, what would those 5 things be?
I think, when we talk about that, we talk about getting back to the basics. And our society likes to skip over the basics, right? Because the basics sound mundane, they're pedestrian, you know, they're not flashy. It doesn't look good on IG, um, but they are so vitally important, man. And I mean, if you just take a step back and you ask yourself, what are the basic things I can do, the massive needle movers that will improve my health? And don't think about the fine tuning down the road, because we can all n equals one and fine tune and continue to do that, and that's cool. I do it too. I still do it. I've got the O-ring, I've got the bio strap, I've got all of that. But the basics I don't ever leave. And those basics are, we evolved as opportunistic eaters and obligate movers, first and foremost. I think we get the obligate moving part, right? I mean, we have to, these physical bodies, whether we like it or not, are stone age equipment. And it still thinks it's running in the stone age, even though we have all this technological advance, and thank God we do. I mean, I'm not talking about going back to the spearing cave. I'm certainly not going to do that myself. I love my creature comforts, and I love the fact that you and I can have this conversation over Zoom right now, and it's a beautiful thing. But this body of mine still has to be taken care of if it's going to continue on, and if I'm going to be able to express my genius in a proper way. So I think we all get that. Ever how you want to move and express that, as long as you can do it consistently, I'm all for it. I think strength training should be a massive part of that, but consistency trumps everything. Now let's shift over to the opportunistic eating. Well, then people would say, yeah, we're omnivores, right? And a large portion, or a large part of why we survived and became the dominant species, other than being able to communicate, was because we could pretty much survive eating anything. I mean, that's a huge advantage over any other species. But the thing is, what was available to us during the bulk of our evolutionary period, right? So opportunistic, now that window shuts, and that's a small window, right? And then if you look at that in optimal foraging theory, like every living species on this earth has to operate under, Every living species on this earth wants to expend the least amount of energy it can for the most energy in return. Well, with our skill set, what is the most energy return that we're going to get? That's on fat. And that is hunting animals that carry large amounts of fat, preferably. And so, I can't prove this with any papers, and the Lord knows people have tried for the longest period of time. We just had a massive debate, with Chris Kresser and the guy from Game Changers. I can't remember his name.
James Willick, I think it is.
Yeah. And this debate can rage on for years simply because we cannot keep a human being as a lab rat for 40 years to really see the outcome. So we have to make best estimates as to what a human being is going to thrive on. And the way to do that, in my opinion, is to look at our evolutionary past and compare our evolutionary past against optimal foraging theory and see what you come up with. I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's black and white. And I'm betting my life on it. That's how much I believe in it. So those I think are the basics. And then we get to, you have to sleep. I live in a go society. I run with a pack of entrepreneurs who is, the old mantra of I'll sleep when I'm dead. And, you snooze, you lose. And, get up at 4 a.m. because those in Europe, you got to get up before them and stay up later than the people in the Philippines. I mean, it's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. Just produce society. And I have to disengage from that and say, nope. If I can't get it done with minimal stress and get 8 hours of sleep, and a lot of times plus a night, and wake up without an alarm every morning, it's not worth it to me. My health is worth everything. And my health starts with proper movement, proper diet, and sleep are the huge things. And I think from those three things, then you dive off into just a multitude of rabbit holes, right? And then you start fine tuning around the edges and find out what works for you and this, that, and the other. But those are the three biggies for me, man. Those are huge.
Yeah, well said. Totally. Sleep is up there for me as well. I have the Oura Ring, and I prioritize it because nothing affects me more than sleep.
Right.
I could eat crappy tomorrow all day, and yeah, it'll affect me. But if I slept crappy, it'll affect me even more. And I believe sleep is more important than diet and exercise combined. I honestly do.
Right.
But we need it all. We need it all. We need to eat healthy. We got to move often. Movement is more important, I think, than just saying I go and I do CrossFit. Just move, right? So you gave some valuable advice there. Now I have a question. I know that you practice intermittent fasting.
Right.
Where does that fall into this ancestral approach here that you're talking about?
Well, our species had to evolve that way, right? If you look at the natural world and you look at all species out there, there are periods of feast and famine. Just about every species has to go through that. And so every species has a mechanism by which they can survive that. And the human species is no different. And I think to the extent that, that we don't honor that is detrimental to our health. And people tend to think going for 4 hours without eating is a huge endeavor just because, food in our society is ubiquitous. You can't turn a corner without running into some kind of food stuff. But that's not the way we evolved. And I mean, that's on the day-to-day situation. That's also seasonally, right? For most of our species had to deal with seasonal changes, abundance, scarcity, all of that. That's that every species in existence has to deal with that as well. And that's just one more needle mover that might be, stage one of the jumping into the rabbit hole on diet. I can tell you how I do it personally. If I schedule a fast, it is around travel for me because that's just the easiest time to do it. If I'm flying on airplanes and in an airport, that's an easy time for me to fast. I generally don't eat in the mornings. I haven't eaten yet. I don't know what time is it here. It's 2:00 here in Central right now. I've had a couple cups of coffee and I've had a pretty rugged workout here right before we dove into this chat. And I haven't eaten yet. And I probably won't eat until about 4:00 this afternoon. That's a normal day for me, right? And the only thing The only normal for me is the fact that the day may change tomorrow. I may eat first thing when I get up tomorrow. I just kind of follow a general feeling. I listen to my body, which I think is hugely important. 9 times out of 10, I'm not hungry when I wake up, but that 1 time out of 10 when I am, I'll eat, and
Yeah.
I just ride the waves, and I'm very, very fluid. The only thing in the eating that I will make sure that I don't get into the mental habit of eating just because it's morning, or eating just because it's lunch, or eating just because it's any other time. I really check in and go, am I hungry or am I not hungry? And
I love it. I mean, you
yeah,
have developed a relationship with your body that
right,
we all have. We all have that ability to have that intuition.
right. Everybody does have it. It may not, you may not be listening to your body, but your body is screaming at you. Everybody's body is. And it's just getting in the habit of being able to listen to what your body is saying. And I think that is the advantage for those people who have become tone deaf to that. That is the advantage of things like the Aura Ring and BioStrap, is that it allows you to tune back into your body if you use it right. Don't use it as a crutch, only, only looking at the data. But I'll tell you the way I use it, just kind of going off on a tangent, but the way I use it is I wake up every morning. How do I feel? Check in. Do I feel like I'm ready to rock and roll? Do I feel sluggish? I go through all of these points. Then I look at data, see what the data, does the data support the way I feel? 9 times out of 10, it does.
Yeah, I do something similar. We have a very similar schedule with fasting, and I also worked out before, a couple hours before. Still fasted. I had my coffee earlier, but I haven't eaten yet. I had a little bit of some sea salt to
Mhm.
replenish on my electrolytes, especially because I
Right.
worked out. But I don't do that every day. So I might have a day where if I wake up in the morning and I feel like I'm ready to eat, I'll do that. And it doesn't happen often, but if I
Right.
experience that, I'll listen to my body. And that's the way that, like you said, the body is hardwired for the old school.
Right.
Our bodies, our 70 trillion cells are hardwired for these feast famine cycles. And that
Right.
adaptation is where the magic lies, because it creates more sensitive hormones. It helps your mitochondria become fitter. It's such a magical process. And that's the way we were designed to be. So
And
just,
it's free, which is intermittent fasting and sleep.
my
Two of the
gosh,
biggest needle moving biohacks you can do, and they're both free.
exactly. They're
Right.
free. That's why people undervalue them, essentially,
Exactly.
because they're free.
Exactly.
If you
Yeah.
put that in a pill, I mean, that's a
Right.
mega billion-dollar industry
Right.
right there.
Right.
Other things that are free: grounding, love, and gratitude. I mean, these are all powerful healing tools that are
Tribe.
100%
Yes.
free. Tribe, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
But going back to the fasting part, I love it. It's one of my favorite tools in that toolbox. Somebody who is really overweight might need to do more of these block fasts. I mean, it's very
Right.
different for the person, but the great thing about it, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is that it's such a burden off your shoulders. If you have a day that you are just slammed and you got to
Right.
get things done, or you're speaking, like when I was speaking this past weekend, I decided I'm not going to eat. I want to be sharp. I don't have to worry about digesting food. So I
Right.
actually got on stage, and it was right after lunch, and I didn't eat during lunch. And I asked the audience, and I'm like, how was lunch? And they're all laughing because they know I want to talk about fasting. And then I said, do you have more energy or less? And they're like, less,
Right.
because it takes a lot of energy and resources to process food. So it's such a great hack for an entrepreneur, and we practice it very similar, Keith.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's yeah. And like I say, and like you say, it is free. And maybe if it did cost us a substantial amount of money, people would put more interest in it. But it's just the way it goes, I suppose.
That's the way it goes. Well, we'll do a
Right.
good job at educating people and inspiring them
Right.
to give it a shot, right? I know a lot of
Right.
people who they'll save money because they stop eating breakfast, and then they'll just spend a little bit extra on more or quality food, right? So
Right.
it's a great trade-off right there. You just start buying organic, you have a little bit more in
Right.
your budget. So it's such a perfect trade-off. Let's get back on course here, and let's
Right.
talk about PaleoFX 2020 coming up in April, at the end of April. What's the exact dates?
It's the 24th through the 26th in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, tell us about the speakers. Tell us about what you look forward to most, and just give us all the details on this amazing upcoming event.
Well, I'll tell you what I look forward to most. I love all of the speakers. I mean, that goes without saying. Most of them are personal friends of mine or Michelle's. Most of these people we have had intimate relationships with for a long period of time, especially Rob Wolf. A quick story about Rob Wolf. In when we were coming up with the concept for PaleoFX in 2011, we recognized that we needed a marquee speaker, and this was going to be a tall order because no one knew what this PaleoFX thing was. So we called up Rob, kind of gave him the run of what it was, and said, we need that speaker. We need the marquee speaker. And he said, yeah, no problem. He's like, I have no idea what you guys are trying to do, but if I can come hang out with you guys for a week in Austin, sign me up. And he has been at PaleoFX every year and never asks any questions. We always, it's a funny story. We always, Rob, will you send us your receipts so we can at least pay for your airfare coming out here? He's not yet ever sent in a receipt. We're like, Rob, will you just send us your receipts so we can pay you something? He's never done it because that's the kind of guy he is. And to a speaker, those speakers are like that. They want so much to give to this community. So there's that. So there's the ability for Michelle and I, it's the one time a year where we can all come together, have a good time, hang out for a while. Yes, we're doing work. Putting on a show is a massive endeavor, and the speakers are working. They're, most of the time at the last minute, they're finishing up their talks. And it's very, very difficult for them because they're engaging with all the attendees. If you can imagine being Rob Wolf trying to walk the expo floor with 8,000 people, it's a carnival. So that's the big thing. Now for the attendee side of it, it is just for me to be able to walk the expo floor and to see people who I saw at the 2012 show as attendees, and just be able to reminisce and hug and hang out, and just the vibe of the floor, and to see the look on all the other attendees and the exhibitors, and the vibe there is just so elevated. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, man. There's so much information that's being provided, and that's cool. That is awesome. But the one thing that's provided there that you can't get anywhere else is that feeling of community, and that just elevate. I mean, you can feel your body change when you're in that atmosphere like that. You can just feel the endorphin rush. Your body loves community. And, as entrepreneurs, Michelle and I could have gone a number of different routes that are, I always laugh, that are easier ways to make money as entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, event is like, don't even go near that because those are generally train wrecks financially. They're just very, very hard to pull off. But we wanted a community. We wanted to provide a platform for community. And I totally derailed on your question. I don't even know what the question was right now, but
well, you answered it. I asked you what you're looking forward to most, and you said that
that's
vibe,
it.
That energy, that feeling that you get there. And
and it is so tough. I can tell you, Ben, in the weeks before the event, it is just all hands on deck. Our great team just puts their heart and soul into this event, and we are dog tired when the doors open for the event. But that vibe just kicks in, and it's like a breath of fresh air, and we were ready to rock and roll, man. As soon as those people start filing in, it's go time, and that is the best time of year for all of us.
Yeah. And you have a great lineup this year. I'm looking at it right here on my computer screen. You have, Rob Wolf, of course, is coming back for the 9th consecutive year. You have Dr. Tom O'Brien, Chris Kresser, Ben Greenfield, Dr. Pompa will be there, JJ Virgin. I mean, the list goes on and on. I could just go on and on and on. But you just guys, I encourage you all to be there. And by the way, I am honored to be on this list, to be a speaker at your event. I can't tell you how grateful I am to be there. I'm going to be talking all about keto for beginners, how to master the keto diet long term if you're a beginner. So I would love to meet you there. I would love to see you there and shake you and give you a hug. I can't wait to give Keith a hug and Michelle a hug, but I'm really looking forward to this event. And if you are inspired to be a part of this, which I hope you are, please go to the notes of this podcast and click that link to get your ticket. Tell us a little bit more about what you expect at this event, Keith.
Right. Well, first of all, Ben, I just want your followers and your fans to know that not everybody gets to be a speaker at PaleoFX. Michelle and I turned down over 400 applications every year, right? I mean, it is tough to get real estate on the PaleoFX stage. And that is one of the most heartbreaking parts of putting on this show is there are out there who have fantastic information. But I mean, we just don't have the stage time to give it to everybody. So we have to be very, very selective with who we bring in. So Ben, to your fans out there, the fact that you are speaking on our stage says a lot because it's a tough vetting process, man. It's tough to be an exhibitor at PaleoFX, and it's even tougher to be a speaker at PaleoFX. So for attendees, you should know that whoever is on that stage has been so thoroughly vetted. It's an arduous process. So to your fans, you guys should be very, very proud to see Ben there, and I would highly recommend coming out to see him in person.
Yeah, thank you. It's such an honor. So thank you for that, Keith.
Yeah. So what am I looking forward to? There's one cool thing. So the intersection between health hacking and ancestral wellness to me is very, very interesting. And to that extent, we have a health say that 3 times fast, a health hacking lounge at PaleoFX this year, which I think is very, very cool. And that's just part of leveraging modern technology to advance ancestral wellness. And there is a balance there, right? We don't want these devices and the quantified self movement to be a crutch. We want it to be used as a mirror for you to tune into your own body. And I think if we use these tools correctly, like I know you do and I do, then it can be a huge boon, and it can help people through some troughs, and it can help people meet themselves. I mean, this body of yours that you're walking around in is trying to tell you something, like we said before, and to the extent you can use these devices to tune back into what it's saying, so much the better. And there's some interesting devices out there, so that's probably what I'm most interested in this year.
That's super cool. I love how you said you don't use it as a crutch. These amazing tools, you use them as kind of a mirror or a mechanism or something to help you develop self-awareness for what's going on.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. So we have the event coming up to end of April. I really hope Keto Campers, you take action with this, because they're gonna hit their numbers either way. They're gonna get their guest there, and I want it to be you. I want my tribe to be there because I'm gonna be there, and I want you guys to represent Keto Camp at this event. So I'm encouraging you to please go and click that link. I want to see you there. I want you to try all these biohacking tools. I want you to learn from some of the best in the world. Let's talk a little bit more. I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Wrap this all up. When it comes to health, I talk about perfect health. And to me, that means functioning normal, the way we were designed to be. Mm-hmm. That's my definition. Now, I want to ask you, what is your definition of perfect health? When you hear those words, what comes to mind?
Well, to me, the ability to express one's genius in an unimpeded fashion, to me, is an expression of perfect health, right? Because if you are in perfect health, it allows you the room, without being encumbered or hamstrung with any other issues, to be able to totally express that genius, whatever that genius is. That could be athletic genius, and there is a genius there. But it could be mathematical genius. It could be anything. But if anybody is hamstrung by any degree of poor health, to the extent you're hamstrung, you are not able to express that genius. And so I look at it that way. And for a long period of time, I was trying to define health through body function, through movement, through all of these other mechanisms. And I finally backed off of that. I thought, well, what does it mean if all of those systems are perfectly dialed in? What it means to me is that genius, that innate genius that each one of us has, and that genius is different across the board. It's an N equals 1 thing. But if you're able to express that in a way that's unimpeded by health, that to me is perfect health.
Great definition. I love that. What are you grateful for today, Keith?
Wow. Well, immediately, I'm grateful for my wife, Michelle, and that she's okay. She recently broke her ankle here a few days ago, which is a whole other hiking story.
Oh, wow.
That was so I'm grateful that she's okay, and we were able to get her out of the get her out of that situation without without any more hassles. so there's that immediately. But maybe in a broader sense, what am I grateful for? I am grateful for my family choice. You know, we had a party here in Austin last Friday night, and it was an entrepreneurial gathering, and it had nothing to do with entrepreneurship. So it was an adult talent show put on by one of the prominent entrepreneurs here in Austin, and it was just a time to hang out, and various entrepreneurs within this, within the city were, singing, dancing, doing whatever their talent was. And I I had the feeling there that night that I am so happy to be able to live life with my family of choice, right? This is a community that I believe in. This is a community I support, and a community that supports me. All that is to say that I have come to be a part of a beautiful tribe, right? So I'm grateful for that tribe. And I wish that for everybody, whatever your tribe is, find that tribe, connect with them, because that will so elevate your life. You can't even imagine, I think, what that feels like to be a part of a community, a face-to-face community
Hmm.
like that. It's fabulous.
Yeah, beautiful. In a world that is getting smaller and smaller, we're getting more separated from each other. So something like this is so
Right.
important, especially because there's so many mental health diseases out there. People
Yes.
are feeling alone, they're feeling depressed, and it doesn't have to be that way. There are people out there who will support you, who will welcome you with open arms, and you're one of them. I'm one of them. The whole community in PaleoFX is one of them. So you have developed that tribe, and I acknowledge you for it. Well, closing words before we wrap this up. What's the final thing you want to leave for the Keto Camp audience?
I think the final thing I would like to leave the audience with is, I could do the self-serving come to PaleoFX thing. That's a given. Um, I think my last words are, back when we began this conversation, we talked about what are the basic things that we can do to elevate our health and wellness. And I would really have your community concentrate on that, right? Movement, eating properly, and sleep, recovery. I would add to that tribe. If you can get those basics covered, you are so far advanced than anyone else around you. You can't even imagine. I mean, you've just taken a massive step forward in elevating your health. Then we can start going down the rabbit holes and fine tuning and n equals one this thing, and playing with different things. But if you can get those four things covered, you're doing all right.
I love it. Yeah, you build a
Right.
solid foundation with
Right.
those. So fantastic. And by the way, before I forget, please send Michelle healing vibes and prayers and hugs from me. Let's
I
get
will.
that ankle healthy, especially before the Austin event. We got to get her healthy.
Right. Right.
Keith, I want to acknowledge you, man. I am so grateful to be a part of this movement, to speak on stage. But I want to acknowledge you also because what you and Michelle have done is it's so special and it's so rare. Like you said, it's very difficult. I know this, to put on an event and make it successful and then keep growing it year after year after year. And you have so many people in the health space, world-class leaders who love what you're doing. I love what you're doing. Thank you for taking a stand. Thank you for having a space, a safe space for people to go every single year. You could count on PaleoFX. You could learn, you could grow, you could get with your tribe. And I'm grateful for you. And I had such a fantastic time on this conversation. I want to say thank you. And I look forward to PaleoFX 2020.
And thank you, Ben, and I cannot wait to see you at the show.
Me too, brother. Thank you again.